Welcome to TICE TV. Today I have with me Mr. Vikram Khurana. He's the chair of Toronto Business Development Center. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, as we have heard that Toronto Business Development Center has done a lot for startups and entrepreneurs. Can you just take me through the journey and how you really initiated the efforts?
So, thank you for this opportunity. Toronto Business Development Center was started 33 years ago by the City of Toronto. And my own journey to Canada began 33 years ago, also coincidentally. I was an undergrad in engineering, and then after that, I went to do my MBA. After my MBA, like a good MBA, I got a job with a bank. But I was not satisfied. The entrepreneur in me wanted to do more. So I became an entrepreneur in 1995. And that's when I started my first company. Subsequent to that, I have become a serial entrepreneur. I've had 5 businesses, and all along I made lots of mistakes. And I wanted other individuals not to make mistakes. So I decided to work with Toronto Business Development Center 2017 and help Indian entrepreneurs that move to Canada to avoid making those same mistakes and to actually teach them what are the things that they need to do in order to be successful.
So, can you tell my audience, like, since you have been a serial entrepreneur, you have been guiding so many startups out there. So, what are those top 5 things, or maybe 3 top things that an entrepreneur should keep in mind and follow rigorously to become successful?
So one is personal adaptation. Personal adaptation, unless people understand that there's a difference in what they see in Hollywood or what they've learned in India, may not work in Canada or North America. So they have to adapt to that. Second, their business product or service that worked in a native market like India may need to be adapted to be better suited for the local market. And then the third thing is the discipline that although you've got lots of human resources in India to do various aspects of your business, in North America, you may have to do everything yourself. So you need to be a little bit of master of all and acquire new skills that you may not be comfortable with at the onset of your journey there.
So, since you have your own startups, your own, a journey to share. So, how you really, think that today's entrepreneurs can do about funding, which probably was not there, for example, 5-10 years ago? What are those things that they can do today along with the technology and available resources?
So, contrary to popular belief, there is no funding winter even right now.
Okay.
And good startups always get money. And I think it all starts with having the uniqueness of the idea.
Right.
If the idea is unique and it has got some innovation or some disruption, then automatically it floats to the top in the funders' minds. The second thing is the execution. Good ideas a dime a dozen, but people that actually go out and do the actions that are necessary to be successful, even though it may be scaling a little bit slower than anticipated, I think that's a value proposition. And then last but not the least is the profitability. Lots of startups think that growth at the cost of profits is always a good idea. Not always. So those are some of the aspects that get funding.
Since you mentioned, valuation and funding, so I want to ask you one thing. So I have seen this trend that a lot of startups are recording, a decrease in their valuation these days, especially in India. So what according to you is the reason? For example, startups like Byju's. So what is the, if there is no funding winter, as you said, as many experts said during this event, so why the valuation is going down there?
So valuation is a very wrong measure of seeing whether there's funding or not. So let's say you start a business and that business, in your mind, you think it's going to make millions of dollars. And because you think it's going to make millions of dollars, because you're the entrepreneur and you understand the potential, you may think that 5 times the revenue is what my valuation is. Whereas I may start the same business and I may be more realistic and I may think that 5 times EBITDA is my valuation. And so there is automatically, for the same business, a difference between what your perceived value is and what my perceived value is. And as you're well aware, uh, entrepreneurs try to inflate the value, and these are all notional values. So when people say that there are no unicorns for so many months now,
6 months.
It's actually a wrong measure, because if I'm funding somebody, I look at all those other concepts that we talked about. I don't look at whether they are a unicorn or not.
All right. So, as you come from Canada and you have expertise in that region, so can you tell our audience, to the new entrepreneurs, like how can they take their business to the global level, and how, and especially to Canada?
So, Canada was one of the first countries in the world to create a startup visa. And through the startup visa, 5 co-founders and their families can apply to come to Canada as permanent residents, and are immediately given a work permit to move to Canada and start their business. And in order to be successful, they collectively have to own only 50% of the business. They can take the other 50% equity to raise capital or to bring on other partners, local collaborators, and so on. And so this is one easy way of moving. And there are many other nations that have since followed, including the United States. And so those are what I recommend to people.
So, coming to my last question for the day, so how you think that organizations and events like Startup 20 will really help global startups?
So, Startup 20 has laid for the first time a framework of how policymakers can help startups. And if you look at the origin of ecosystems, ecosystem was actually just meant to put lots of startups together so they could share their experiences, they could share contacts, they could share their services with each other, and so on. Later on, it got expanded to include accelerators, include funders, include venture capitalists, and these kind of players. And now governments have gotten in.
Right.
And in order for governments to be good players and be helpful, these kind of policies need to be put in place. And that's what Startup 20 does.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khurana. It was nice talking to you. Thank you for
Likewise.
your insights.
Yes. Thank you for having me.